So thank you for joining us. What we're hoping to do with these interviews is share with people something that we've had the opportunity to do when we had our yoga studio. We've had Bhagavan Das here, we've had Girish here, we've had a lot of different kirtan artists. We were always bringing different kirtan artists, and we had the luxury of seeing kind of behind the scenes. A lot of these people would stay with us. People like Mark Whitwell, yoga teachers, not just kirtan artists, but other yoga teachers, Doug Swenson, people like this. And we got a chance to kind of, interact with them in a different way than when they're presenting, doing a kirtan or something like that. So we're hoping to kind of get behind the scenes and see how people arrived here, in this devotional practice and yoga and things like that, and also to, see what their practices are like, what their daily life is like. So hoping to, give people some inspiration of how they might find that inspiration in their own life and their own daily practices. So,
and also just giving you a chance to kind of share your story. I know it's hard to put it like in a bio and things like that. So we wanted to start first asking how you pronounce your name.
Sure. My name is pronounced Shyama.
Shyama.
It's like Sham. It's a feminine form of Sham, and it has the same meaning.
And is there a story behind your spiritual name?
Well, it was given to me by Siddhima in Penshi when I was first there. So that was the fall of 2004. So almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And, I wanted a name. That some people do. I did. And I wanted a name at the time very much from Maharaji. Of course, Maharaji left his body in 1973, as we know. And that was what I wanted. And so, I felt a little bit shy about wanting that. And I didn't want to ask in front of any of the Westerners. So I waited until I was in a darshan with Ma, where there were other people there, but none of them were Westerners. I don't know why that mattered to me, actually, in retrospect, but it did. And I asked her, and I said to her, Ma, if Maharaji has a name for me, I'd like to know it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a little tricky, I was being a little cute, maybe. But that was what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And,
yeah.
I don't know, she didn't say anything at the time. And then I heard that there was some discussion in the back where she was talking to some people I knew about names. And I don't know, I don't remember the details of that, to be honest. But a couple of days later, I was with several friends out by the front gate of the ashram. And we were all just hanging out, and Ma came and joined us. And maybe this was the evening before she gave it to me. That's right. So she came out and asked everybody what's her name, meaning me. And they all said my Western name, which is Julia or Jules, my original birth name from my mom and dad. And she just sort of smiled and said, So then the next day, after the morning practice and after the morning arti and prayers, we were standing outside of the window where you look into Maharaji's kutir.
Mm-hmm.
And she approached, it was basically the same bunch of us. She approached us again and told me my name. And she said, "Do you like it?" And then because she knew that I probably knew But like most of us, I wanted to feel special. She said, no one else has this name in the satsang.
Hmm.
I don't know. Anyway, that's what happened. That's how it came. And then more recently, and of course, the best part as the years went by, the best part was hearing her say my name.
Oh,
And
yeah.
anyone who was with her would say that. That was the sweetness, right? But not that long ago, I was listening to I was actually there when Robert Thurman, the Buddhist scholar, was talking. And he was talking about the name Sham. And not because of me, but just he happened to be. And he said, Sham is the color, the dark blue, it's the color of twilight. And it's the color of Krishna, obviously, and Ram. He didn't say that, but that's right, because it's the color of Vishnu. But also, he said, it's the color of the medicine Buddha, and it's the color of Shiva's throat, Nilkant. So, and he said the significance, as he understood it, and I hope I get this right, but anyway, what I heard him say was that the significance was that this color is the antidote to rage.
It's beautiful.
So I loved hearing that. It helped me have a little more insight into the name. But when Ma gave it to me, she specifically said it was Radha. Because it can also be Kali. It can refer to the goddess in her dark forms. But Ma said to me, it's Radha.
Yeah.
So that's what I know about the name.
That's
And what a beautiful way to receive that through Maharaji and Siddhi Ma, such a beautiful
it was
lesson.
it was very special to get. Of course, that's what I wanted. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So let's back up even further and tell us something about your history. I know you studied music and in college and so forth. So tell us how things evolved for you to get to where you're at today.
It's kind of a mystery, honestly, but I can tell you some things. But how it happened, I don't even know, because I was being a regular American weirdo, which maybe I still am that. But how did things evolve? I grew up. Perhaps this is interesting. I don't completely understand it myself, but I grew up as a Christian Scientist. I will say that that was my upbringing. So I had a grounding in the idea of the unreality of matter. That's a kind of a core concept in that. And it's kind of a form, to me, looking back, it feels like a kind of a Christian Advait approach. I'm sure that's not philosophically completely accurate, but it does feel like that, because it's saying that the only thing that's real is spirit. So I grew up with that. And I also walked away from it because I found a lot of inspiration in nature as a teenager. And so that didn't quite work for me to say it wasn't real. That's the very short version of that. But anyway, it wasn't something I pursued after college at all. And even during college, I wasn't really very active in that. But it definitely had an effect on my psyche in some ways. And it definitely, it sort of prepared the ground, I guess. But I wasn't seeking. I will say that. I very much was not a seeker. I still don't think of myself as a seeker. Because why would I seek when I've found it? But I wasn't looking for it. It's just, I don't know. I was in San Francisco it was actually the week after 9/11. And I was in a band after grad school. I wasn't being a particularly productive member of society, I guess. I was trying to figure out what to do. I had been doing editorial editing work. I had been doing proofreading and editing work. But anyway, and I had an MFA in creative writing at that point. But right after 9/11, I went up to Harbin Hot Springs, which is a hot spring just north of Calistoga, in Lake County, actually, in California. And I was having some body work and complaining about a habit of talking to myself in the car while I would drive around the Bay Area a lot, long drives, doing whatever I guess band gigs and stuff. And the person said to me, well, you should try chanting in the car. I used to do that, and it really helped me. Of course, you can chant and still have hypothetical conversations. I'm just saying. But it seemed like I thought to myself, well, I like to sing. I could try that. I'd never thought about chanting. And I have, anyway, I didn't have any lifelong draw toward India. I didn't have any, I wasn't trying to find a spiritual path or a guru. I wasn't doing any of those things. But anyway, I went there was a kirtan that night at Harbin because Bhagavan Das, who you know, used to live there. And he had started this. He was no longer there. But it was, the kirtan was happening on Sunday nights. And I just thought, I looked on the bulletin board when I came out of the bodywork session and said, oh, look, there's this tonight. I should just go check it out. So I went. There was a picture of Maharaji and Amma on the puja because that was sort of the part of his life that was in. And they chanted Hanuman Chalisa. I remember they handed out the words. There must have been it was an evening of chanting. And I remember they ended with Sri Krishna Govinda Arti, which I remember liking. That was my first kirtan. And I went down, then I went back to, I was living in San Francisco. I went back down to Santa Cruz, where I had been living. And I went into the bookstore there, which is called Gateways. This doesn't exist anymore, but until recently. And they had, because I thought, well, let me buy something to play in the car. I can try this, And they only had, they didn't have, I needed a tape. I needed a cassette because they only had, mostly had CDs at that point. This was 2001. And, but there were a few tapes, and the only one that appealed to me was there was a double tape called Live on Earth for a limited time only.
Krishna does.
I saw that and I thought, well, that looks like a good deal. Right? And I took it out. I bought it, obviously, and I took it out to the car, and it was remarkable to hear his voice come out of the speakers because it was very familiar sounding to me. It just sounded like the only an analog that I've come up with is it was like looking in an old family photo album and seeing someone in all the pictures that you hadn't noticed before. It was like that. It was super familiar. So I really liked it also, besides it being familiar. And I just, it sort of booted everything else out of my playlist in the car. And that's what and I just started driving around chanting. So that's the short version.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. We've also been, my beginning of my journey was the first time I did a yoga class. I mean, well, not the first time I did a yoga class, but I went to take a yoga class, and the teacher played a Krishna Das song. I can't remember what it was at the time, but man, there was something about that. And I couldn't wait for the class to finish so I could go into the lobby and see if they had that CD for sale. So they did, and I bought it and played the heck out of it.
Which one was it?
I can't remember which one it was. It might have been it might have been Live on Earth. I don't remember what it was, but it was just I just remember the experience of listening to that, and also feeling like you described was something's familiar. So how did you end up? Arriving to sing with Krishna Das? That must have been quite a fascinating journey to that. After
Well, I just really wanted to. Well, I looked on his website, at some point fairly quickly, and I saw he was coming out to sing at Open Secret Bookstore in San Rafael.
Mhm.
He was still singing in the bookstore, so
Awesome.
it was early.
Yeah.
There were 2 nights, and then there was going to be a satsang with Ram Dass, who still lived in California at that time.
Wow,
Gosh.
awesome.
And so I went, and while I was there, after the second kirtan, I walked up to him and I said hello, and I said, I looked at your schedule and I'd like to do a retreat, but I don't care so much about yoga. Is there one that's more just chanting?
Mhm.
And he said, yeah, you should come up. You're on this coast. You should come to Brighton Bush in Oregon. Ram Dass and I do a week together, and we chant during the evenings, and he has satsang during the day, and there's yoga, of course. But he said you should come to that. So then I did. It was in August, and after that I was at a funny point in my life where I didn't have a lot tying me down, and I had some funds. That's not really the case anymore. But at the time, it was really free. I had a lot of freedom, and I basically just traveled around and chanted with KD.
Wow.
That's what I did, and because I was so into it, and because I'm a singer and a musician in my own way, eventually I started being involved in some of his recording projects and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel like, did you feel during that period that something was changing, that your spirituality was coming back to life in a different way? Anything like that? No?
No, I don't. I just really liked to hear him chant, and I really liked to hear him talk, as it turned out later when he started talking more. I felt like he tells a lot of the same stories, right? Over and over.
Yeah.
And I could hear them a million times. It didn't matter to me at all.
Yeah.
I liked the whole thing of it.
Yeah.
And I also did go to hear other kirtan people. I definitely went to a few things that Bhagwan Das did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever saw Girish until later, but I'm trying to think. Well, and there was another Maharaji satsang person in the Bay Area, Uma Reed, who was leading chant, and I used to go to her things. Jeffrey Gordon was doing things. But that's not what you're asking. You're asking if I had a sort of feeling of spiritual awakening or something. Honestly, I just was doing whatever I wanted to do next. I don't feel like I was in some glorious bubble of spiritual discovery to see it all. I just felt like me doing whatever it was that I was doing. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
What propelled you then to go to India?
I was at a retreat, actually the first retreat that was held at Menla, when Bob Thurman and Tibet House opened that center, which is west of Woodstock in New York.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that happened there was a retreat with Sharon Salzberg and Krishna Das. And I went. I was still in California. But a friend, someone he had been dating actually at the time, happened to show me a picture of Siddhima. There were no pictures of her online because she forbid that, actually. But this person had been given a picture by Krishna Das, and she showed it to me. I don't know, even she had never been to see her. I don't know how much she even knew about her. She knew who she was.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked who she was, and she told me, and I just remember thinking, I was like, she's alive. I have to go. That's just how it felt.
Mm.
Mhm.
So that's why I went, and then that's a whole other chapter.
So then you obviously made your way back to New York, and that's where you reside now. So how did you, at what point did you start to offer kirtan and things like that? I mean, I know there's a Brooklyn Collective and things like that. So how did you
Well,
come to offer kirtan?
I started chanting fairly early on, even while I was in California.
Mhm.
A friend of mine who had been chanting for a long time and was an old satsang person, asked me if I'd like to share a kirtan with her. She told me recently she didn't realize I had never led kirtan before. I hadn't, but I wrote a couple of melodies for that occasion, which I still sing sometimes because I was a songwriter starting when I was a kid. So that part seemed like something I would like to do, and I did. And so that was the first one, and that was at a beautiful little studio in Berkeley, 4th Street Yoga, Barbara Voynar's studio.
Awesome.
And, yeah, and that was I don't know what year, but it was pretty early on, and I had an ektara. I followed the ektara path for quite a while. I was a guitar player, not a keyboards player ever, except as a child. When I quit piano at 7, I didn't have any, I wasn't going back. Anyway, so I played ektara, and I wanted to, and I chanted Hanuman Chalisa pretty early on. I really wanted to learn it.
Yeah.
And chant it. So that's just how it was. But what did you ask? I don't know if I answered.
Oh, just say, yeah. I mean, you did. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just asking how you started offering kirtan.
Right. So then when I started coming back to New York for things, because I was still in California then. There was 108 chalisas happening in the city on New Year's Eve, or New Year's morning. Sorry, New Year's Day. At the time, it was at Dharma Mitra Studio, and I remember the first time I went to that, and I sang a few chalisas then, and I became kind of part of that. Those became my friends in the city and the satsang. So then, as things evolved, and Lily Cushman opened her studio in Brooklyn, Brooklyn Yoga, and we invited us all to sing. That's what happened. That's what happened. And then, of course, I've sung many other places, but Brooklyn Yoga and Brooklyn Kirtan Collective is really my home base.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to when it can be live again. But
yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Still really nice online. I don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all good. So I wanted to ask you, so today, I mean, the way that I discovered who you were and ultimately asked you if we could talk was, I seen this, quite a while ago. I mean, it may have been in 2020. It just popped up on my Facebook feed one day that you were singing the Chalisa, and you've been singing it, I think today was 662, something like that, days.
I think that's right. Yeah, you must have looked.
Well, I do kind of in a stealthy way, I do log in and I listen. Sometimes I can't listen to the whole thing, but recently I've listened a few times, and you've been offering some readings from the Ramayana and some readings from I think from the Gospel of Ramakrishna, and singing the Chalisa and things like that. So I did want to ask, was that a part of your practice prior to COVID, or did you decide to start to do that as a response to all the stress and anxiety around what's going on in the world today?
I had been part of taking groups to India with Saraswati Markus. She's still doing that. And I still am part of it, although, and I think there's one going. I don't know that I'm on it, but anyway, that was happening, and we had actually gone to do a yatra in February of 2020, and then we had to turn around and come back because India suspended visas, and the CDC declared the pandemic, and all of that happened. So I came back to the city, and I had to quarantine for 10 days, of course, because I'd been overseas. And my friend Devadas, who also sings on Brooklyn Kirtan and who I've known for a long time, had started, while I was gone, doing morning Kirtan online at 9 o'clock in the morning, which he's still doing.
Yeah, I've tuned in.
Yeah, it's great, right? And I thought, well, I could do that. I wasn't especially stressed, I mean, no more than normal. But I just felt like it felt like a good idea. And then as I thought about it more, it felt like a really good idea, because I have practices, and these have been my practices all along. They're practices Ma gave me to do, to read about the saints. She asked what I was reading one day, and I don't know what I told her, because I don't know what I was reading, but she said, you should read about the saints, lives of the saints. And she actually said, especially Paramahansa Ramakrishna and Sri Sharda Devi. So, but she didn't limit me, but she did say to definitely read about them. So, and then she also had given me the practice of chanting the Chalisa. And she also asked me to chant Bajrang Baan at some point, which I also do. And she actually gave me that number 11, which is the sort of the auspicious number that's often chanted for Hanuman Chalisa.
Yeah.
And I have done it a lot over the years, but I can't say I've done it every day. I haven't. Because, you wake up and you're tired, and you have to do stuff, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm very easily persuaded to get a little more sleep. I'm very easily
we all are.
and things crowd in, like they do in life.
Yeah.
But for me, the way I'm wired, if I think somebody expects me to show up, I'm going to be there. So I don't know if it was before I started or after, but I quickly realized that this was really a great thing, because when Ma gives you a practice, it would be really good to do it. In fact, she always knew what everybody was doing. She didn't make a big deal out of it. She didn't show that very easily. But one time I was, for some reason, asking her if I should do some additional sadhana. It was really funny. And because of course I wasn't even doing what she'd given me. But anyway, she smiled at me and she said, 11 Hanuman Chalisas would be good. So that's just to say that I realized that this would be a way that I could really do my practice the way I'd always wanted to, but hadn't had the dedicated gumption or whatever, that extra push. I knew I would do it if I thought people expected me to show up.
Yeah, held you accountable.
I'm not proud of that, but I do think it's also a kind of grace to have an opportunity to do what you've been given.
Yeah. So you've been doing it for 662 days, and
I haven't missed a day.
I'll tell you honestly, it just sounds like an incredible thing to do, because we both know how hard it is to maintain a daily practice. Durga Devi has been doing it for quite a while. She sings the Chalisa every morning, and I hear the kartals going. She doesn't play any instruments; she's just singing, and so I hear the kartals going, and I think, oh, I should be doing that, but I have my own practices that I do, try to do them on a daily basis, but I give you a lot of credit for doing that, because I'm sure you have other things to do, and But you've been doing it and offering that for such a long time now. It's so beautiful. So I did want to, we will certainly let everybody know to tune in. Is it at approximately 7-ish? Is
Yes.
that okay?
It's approximate because I'm really bad at getting up in the morning. I'm not a morning person. And so I do my best. And as has been pointed out, trying is not really the good word to use. I should just say I'm going to do it. But I'm going to be there before 7:30 for sure.
Yeah. Well, you always have your camera on and you have the candles lit and, you can see Maharaji there and the images and things like that. So it's a nice image to wake up to and look at, So
I feel very grateful. And honestly, for me, it's just one day. I mean, this is so basic, but it's one day at a time.
Yeah.
I don't think in terms of, I've got to do day 600 and whatever tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's just become, I think that's the grace, that's the really nice thing about doing a practice every day. After a while, it becomes what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the blessings come.
Yeah.
So
I did want to ask you, about doing the Chalisa. I mean, what do you think the benefit to people are? I mean, we've been chanting the Chalisa for a number of years. I mean, not quite as long as you have, but for a number of years. And, and we've always kind of suggested to people, if you want some type of sadhana to do and you're interested in chanting, you're interested in mantra, then take 40 weeks or whatever it is and learn a verse a week and make that your spiritual practice. And that was my approach. That's what I had to do. I had to really make a commitment to learn one verse every week. I mean, can you speak a little bit about the Chalisa and what effects you felt from learning that when you first learned it and doing it so many times, and what the benefits might be for other people?
I think that when this is what's coming to mind, when you chant the Hanuman Chalisa, there's a boon embedded in it. Mm-hmm. At the end, it's actually stated twice. You ask first, Tulsidas, who is the composer, author, asks Hanumanji to come into his heart, make his camp in his heart. Make your camp in my heart. And then, in the final lines, we ask Hanuman to come and live in our hearts with Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita. So I think if you can invite that divinity into your own being, it's who we already are. I know that also, but we don't know that. So that invitation is very powerful. And so we're not simply bowing to something that's external to us. We're actually invoking that in ourselves, as well as bowing. It's certainly a bowing, but that's part of the whole thing. To have that place in yourself is really, I feel like you may think I've been doing it for longer than you have, but believe me, it's not that much longer. So
it's really like a remembering and a returning, just like when you said you heard Krishna Das's voice and it was familiar. Yeah. That's how I feel with the Chalisa. It's like a remembering. It helps me remember what's real within.
Yeah, it's reminding Hanumanji of his power, because that's what the story does. And of course, that's the thing about Hanuman. He has to be reminded, they say. But it's also reminding oneself, reminding ourselves of that wisdom and strength and selflessness that is our real nature.
Right, of showing up every day at 7 a.m. to serve.
But I think the other thing to know is that Maharaji said, and you probably heard Krishnadas or other people mention this, he said that prayers like the Hanuman Chalisa, I don't know which ones are like it, I can't say, but certainly the Chalisa has the power to change fate. And I'm just quoting Krishnadas now, but he always says we don't know what has been changed necessarily, what boulders have been removed, what has been has been purified for us. But I think through experience we learn that it has, and that we can rely on that connection. So
yeah, the magic of life, right? When you can't explain something,
you have no way of saying why,
right? Yeah,
someone could certainly look at it and say, well, that's just random. You know what it feels like, so it doesn't feel random,
right.
like grace.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We did want to mention you have a CD that came out, I believe, in 2018, Love's Door. And you're also featured on Taoist Hanuman, the CD, where there's you're singing the Chalisa, and I think Krishna Das and Jaya Uttal and many
Trevor
other people.
Hall.
Trevor Hall.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely remind people that those are out there, and invite people to purchase those and help you out a little bit, and also to tune in for every day. We can look and see if you've decided to get up another day, and if it's if
better, and now
at least for a few more weeks, so
I'm doing it because how can you stop?
Right.
Okay.
Maybe it's Maharaji that's telling us to, we're like puppets. He's just telling us what to say and how to keep you going. So
please keep me going.
Yeah, but it's just very beautiful. I just want to let you know that we do appreciate it, and I want to let everybody else know that it's such an awesome thing to wake up around 7 or 7:30, whatever time it is. But it's a beautiful way to start the day. I love listening. I love the
7:15.
Yeah. And, I was trying to recall one of the readings, I think it was last week you were reading, and I can't remember what it is now. My mind, it just went out of my mind, but there was this reading that you read. It was a story of how there were two characters in the Ramayana that were born. And it was that story.
It's
and
the Mahabharata, actually.
Pardon me?
I'm not reading the Ramayana right now. It's the Mahabharata.
Oh, the Mahabharata. Okay, right. Okay. So there was a reading in there, and I just wanted to tell you and let other people know that there was something in that reading that really resonated with me, and I can't remember the specifics of it, but I was actually driving down to teach a yoga class and listening early in the morning one morning, and I used that story in my yoga class. So it was, but I can't remember what it is because I don't remember what I even say after I teach a yoga class. It just kind of flows out, So anyway, so are there other ways that people can reach out to you and give you some offering for for what you're doing for people?
Well, in terms of ways to connect, I do have a website. It's fairly dormant at the moment, but I always have ambitions to resuscitate it. It exists. It's just not updated with events right now. That's just my name, shyamachapin.com.
Yeah.
There is the Facebook page. I'm on Instagram, but I'm fairly non-existent there too.
Yeah.
But the Facebook page gets updated with various events, and those are the main ways.
Okay. We'll include that so people know how to connect.
Yeah.
Sure. Please do. And the Facebook page is Shyama Chapin Kirtan.
Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you for taking the time to do this. It's really special for us to connect, and we have, like I said, when we had our yoga studio, we had people coming in and out of our house all the time. But, the last couple of years have been, we can't do that anymore and our studio is closed. But it's, we're hoping that we can, we would share, and, we always asked when people are here leading kirtan or yoga class, we'd ask them always to share something about, about their own practices and things like that. So this is our way of kind of continuing on with that tradition. So thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. So.
You're welcome. And I should add, I just thought of this. If people are interested in those trips to India that Saraswati does, the information is on Nourishing Life. That's her, nourishinglife.com, Saraswati Markus.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll check that out. We'll post that. This will probably be on YouTube, and it will also be on our website. So we'll spread it around as best as we can.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shyama.
So much.
Hopefully that.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
that'd be great.
We do make a trip out to Woodstock. We have been trying to do it once a year. I think we missed 2020, but last year we were
there for our honeymoon last year.
Yeah. So
very nice. Congratulations.
So we like it out there, So maybe we'll connect at some point in the future when it's safe to do so.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, you too.
Stay safe.
Ram Ram.
Ram Ram.
Jai Ma.